The crystalline halls of the Celestial Dominion's flagship astral crown gleamed with an otherworldly light as High Matriarch Nyxis glided through them, her silver-scaled skin reflecting prismatic patterns across the walls. Her 4 eyes, each a different shade of violet, narrowed as she approached the holding cells. The latest batch of human prisoners awaited her inspection, and she had no intention of making it pleasant. The humans had proven remarkably resilient in their resistance against the Dominion's expansion. While other species cowered or surrendered, these primitives fought back with surprising ingenuity. It was almost admirable, if it wasn't so terribly inconvenient. The security field dissipated with a soft hum, revealing a line of captured humans. Most stood with their heads bowed, defeated. But one stood tall, shoulders squared, radiating defiance. Commander Diana Blackwood, former chief engineer of the Earth Defense Force, met Nyxis's gaze without flinching. "Your ship's quantum drive design is impressively efficient," Diana remarked casually, as if discussing the weather. "Though the particle containment could use some work. I heard the harmonics when we came aboard. You're losing about 20% of your potential output." Nyxis felt her facial scales bristle. How dare this primitive critique Dominion technology? You're either very brave or very foolish human. "I'm an engineer," Diana replied with a slight shrug. "I notice things, like how your artificial gravity keeps fluctuating. Might want to check the field generators in Section 7. The guard beside Nyxis shifted uncomfortably. They'd been having issues with that exact section for weeks. The High Matriarch's inner eyelids flickered in annoyance. "You seem to forget your position, Commander Blackwood. You are not here to offer technical advice." "No, then why am I here? Surely the mighty Celestial Dominion didn't capture Earth's top quantum engineer just to throw me in a cell." Diana's dark eyes held a hint of amusement. "You need our technology, don't you? Something's gone wrong with your precious superiority." Nyxis moved closer, towering over the human. Even for her species, she was tall, nearly 8 feet of gleaming, scaled magnificence. "We need nothing from primitive beings who barely manage to reach their own moon." Says the one whose ship is running on borrowed tech. Diana's smile was razor-sharp. "Those quantum cores you're so proud of, they're based on human theoretical work. You just got there first because you had a head start. But you never quite figured out how to stabilize them properly, did you?" The strike was faster than human eyes could follow. Nyxis's hand shot out, grabbing Diana by the throat and lifting her off the ground. "You will learn respect, human." But Diana didn't struggle. Instead, she laughed, a genuine, amused sound that echoed through the holding cells. "You know what's funny? Your people are so convinced of their superiority that you can't even see when you're making mistakes. Those harmonics I mentioned, they're getting worse. Give it 3 months and your entire quantum drive network will collapse." Nyxis dropped her, scales flushing dark with rage. But a seed of doubt had been planted. The drive harmonics had been increasing. The engineers couldn't explain why. "Take her to the high-security containment," Nyxis ordered. "I want her isolated." As the guards led Diana away, she called back over her shoulder. "When those drives start to fail, you know where to find me. I'll even help for a price." Nyxis watched her go, fury warring with uncertainty. She accessed the ship systems through her neural link, checking the quantum drive readings. The harmonics were indeed worse than yesterday. She would never admit it aloud, but for the first time in her centuries of life, High Matriarch Nyxis felt something dangerously close to fear. Not of the human, never of a mere human, but of the possibility that the Dominion's technological supremacy might not be as absolute as they had always believed. And in the depths of the astral crown, the quantum drives hummed their increasingly unstable song, counting down to a crisis that would force 2 species to either work together or face extinction. The warning sirens of the astral crown pierced through the usual hum of machinery, their haunting wail echoing through crystalline corridors. High Matriarch Nyxis stood in the ship's command center, her scaled hands gripping the control interface as holographic displays flashed urgent warnings in pools in crimson. "Status report," she demanded, all 4 of her violet eyes fixed on the quantum drive readouts. Her chief engineer, Vorith, spoke with barely contained panic. The harmonics have reached critical levels, high matriarch. The containment fields are failing faster than we can reinforce them, if we don't shut down the drives now. Unacceptable, Nyxus cut him off. We are in contested space. Without our quantum drives, we'll be vulnerable to human counterattacks. As if summoned by her words, the ship shuddered violently. Emergency lights bathed the command center in an eerie purple glow as secondary systems began to fail. The proud flagship of the Celestial Dominion, pride of their fleet, was dying. Vorith's scales had paled to an ashen gray. High Matriarch, we've tried everything. Our best engineers can't stabilize the quantum matrix. The cascading failure will reach the core in less than 30 minutes. Nyxus felt the weight of centuries of Dominion pride pressing down on her shoulders. She knew what she had to do, but the very thought made her scales crawl. With a sharp gesture, she activated the ship's internal communication system. Bring me the human engineer, now. When the guards escorted Commander Diana Blackwood into the command center, she took one look at the holographic displays and whistled low. Well, 3 months, I said. Looks like I was optimistic. Save your gloating, human, Nyxus snapped. Can you fix it? Diana's eyes darted across the readouts, her mind clearly already working on the problem. Maybe, but like I said before, it'll cost you. You dare to bargain while this ship and everyone aboard faces destruction. I dare because I'm your only chance at survival. Diana's voice was steel wrapped in silk. My terms are simple, freedom for my crew and a seat at the negotiating table for Earth. No more conquest attempts, no more raids. We talk like equals. Another violent shudder ran through the ship. Warning klaxons intensified as new system failures cascaded through the vessel. Nyxus felt her facial scales ripple with suppressed rage. You would hold us hostage to your demands. I'm offering you a chance to save both our species. Diana stepped closer to the displays, hands twitching as if she could reach through the holograms and fix the problem directly. Your quantum drive network is collapsing because you never understood the underlying principles. You copied our theoretical work but missed crucial stabilization factors. Let me help you, and let's end this war before it destroys us both. 25 minutes to core breach. Nyxus could feel the ship's pain through her neural link, feel the mighty vessel dying around her. Pride warred with practicality in her mind. If I agree to your terms, can you guarantee you can save this ship? Diana's eyes met hers, unwavering. No guarantees, but I'm the best shot you've got. Another system failure alert screamed through the command center. Nyxus made her decision. Release her restraints, give her full access to the engineering systems. She fixed Diana with all 4 eyes. But know this, human, if you fail or if this is some trick, we all die together. Trust me, your magnificence, I'm very motivated to stay alive. Diana's hands flew across the control interface, making adjustments faster than Nyxus could follow. Vorith, I need you to reroute power from the auxiliary batteries to the containment fields. We have to stabilize the harmonics before we can tackle the core issue. To his credit, the Dominion engineer hesitated only briefly before complying. Numbers and equations filled the air as Diana worked, her fingers dancing through holographic symbols as she fought to save a ship of her enemies. The quantum field is destabilizing because you're trying to force it into an artificial rhythm, she explained as she worked. These drives need to breathe to find their natural resonance. You've been fighting against quantum mechanics instead of working with them. 18 minutes to core breach. The ship's shuddering had increased, but Diana seemed to barely notice. She was lost in the work, in the puzzle that stood between them and oblivion. There, she said suddenly, inputting a final sequence. That should. The ship gave one last violent heave, and for a moment Nyxus was certain they had failed. But then the shuddering stopped. The warning klaxons fell silent. On the holographic displays, the angry red warnings faded to calm blue as the quantum. Harmonics stabilized. Diana stepped back from the controls, a thin sheen of sweat on her forehead. That's bought us some time, but this is just a temporary fix. The whole system needs to be redesigned if you want to prevent this from happening again. Nyxus studied the human with new eyes. In less than 15 minutes, this primitive had solved a problem that had stumped the Dominion's best minds for months. "It seems," she said carefully, "that we have much to discuss about the future of our species' relations." "Yes," Diana agreed, allowing herself a small smile. "We do, but first I'd like to see my crew." The vast emptiness of deep space stretched before the astral crown as Diana worked alongside Dominion engineers, her hands deep in the ship's quantum drive systems. 3 days had passed since the near-catastrophic failure, and while her temporary fix held, implementing a permanent solution proved more challenging than expected. "The power distribution is still not optimal," Nyxis observed from behind her, the High Matriarch's presence a constant reminder of the delicate balance between cooperation and control. Diana wiped sweat from her brow, leaving a smudge of conductive gel across her forehead. "That's because we need to completely rebuild the containment matrix. I told you, this isn't something we can patch together with." The ship lurched suddenly, throwing them both against the nearest wall. Emergency lights flashed as alarms blared through the engineering bay. "Status report," Nyxis demanded through her neural link. A voice crackled through the ship's comm system. "Unknown spatial anomaly detected. We're being pulled off course." Diana was already at the nearest console, fingers flying across the holographic displays. "The quantum field is destabilizing again, but this is different. Something external is interfering with." Another violent shake cut her off. Through the viewing ports, space itself seemed to twist, reality bending like light through a prism. The astral crown's hull groaned under forces it was never designed to withstand. "All power to the structural integrity fields," Nyxis commanded, but it was too late. Reality fractured around them. Diana felt a sensation like being turned inside out, a moment of impossible geometry where up became sideways and time flowed like molasses. When her vision cleared, the astral crown was no longer in deep space. They were plummeting through the atmosphere of an unknown planet. "Brace for impact," the warning barely registered before they hit. Diana awoke to the taste of copper in her mouth and the sound of emergency systems failing. She pushed herself up from the deck, checking for injuries. Besides bruises and a splitting headache, she seemed intact. Nyxis lay nearby, her silver scales dulled with dust and debris. The High Matriarch stirred, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence as she regained consciousness. "Status," Nyxis demanded, her voice hoarse. Diana glanced at the nearest functioning display. "We're grounded. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7. Life support is running on auxiliary power and—" She paused, double-checking the readings. "Something's interfering with our long-range communications." "The crew." Emergency protocols activated in time. Most sectors report survivors, but were scattered across the crash site. Nyxis pulled herself to her feet, her usual grace hampered by what appeared to be an injured leg. "Where are we?" Diana studied the atmospheric readings. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, gravity slightly higher than Earth standard, but these energy readings, she frowned. "They're like nothing I've ever seen." Through the broken viewing port, they could see their surroundings. The ship had crashed in what appeared to be a valley, surrounded by towering crystalline formations that pulsed with an inner light. The sky above was a deep purple, crossed by ribbons of energy that danced like aurora borealis. "This planet isn't in any of our charts," Nyxis said, her scales shifting color with concern. "Maybe that's because it doesn't want to be found," Diana pointed to the crystal formations. "Those aren't natural, this whole place. It feels engineered." A distant roar echoed through the valley, followed by the sound of metal tearing. Both women tensed. "We're not alone," Diana observed quietly. "No," Nyxis agreed, checking her weapon. "And I doubt our visitors will be friendly." As if in response, something massive moved among the crystal spires. Its shape was difficult to process, all angles that shouldn't exist and surfaces that seemed to phase in and out of reality. "We need to move," Diana said, already gathering emergency supplies from a broken storage compartment. "Whatever that thing is, I don't think your weapons will do much good against it." Nyxus's facial scales flickered, the equivalent of a human raising an eyebrow. You suggest we run. I suggest we survive. Diana tossed her a portable energy cell. Besides, your leg's injured. You can barely walk, let alone fight. Another roar closer this time. The creature was hunting them. I do not require your assistance, human. Diana smiled grimly. Really, want to test that theory against whatever that thing is. The creature emerged fully into view, a mass of crystalline tentacles and impossible geometry that hurt the eyes to look at directly. It moved with predatory purpose toward the crashed ship. Nyxus's scales paled slightly. Perhaps tactical retreat would be prudent. That's the spirit. Diana helped support the taller alien's weight. Now let's find the rest of the survivors and figure out where the hell we are, and more importantly, how to get out of here. Together, they slipped away from the wreckage into the alien landscape, two former enemies united by circumstance. Behind them, the creature began tearing into the astral crown's hull, its crystalline appendages seeking prey that had already escaped. The purple sky pulsed overhead, and somewhere in the distance, more impossible shapes moved among the crystal spires. This world, whatever it was, had rules of its own. Survival would require more than technology or weapons. It would demand cooperation between species that had been trying to destroy each other mere days ago. And as they made their way through the alien terrain, both Diana and Nyxus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not just by the creatures, but by the planet itself. The crystalline forest cast prismatic shadows across Diana and Nyxus as they made their way through the alien terrain. They had found several groups of survivors, both human and Dominion, establishing a makeshift camp in what appeared to be the ruins of an ancient structure. The high walls offered protection from the geometric horrors that stalked the landscape, but questions about their shelter only multiplied. These markings, Diana traced her fingers along symbols etched into the crystalline walls, which pulsed faintly at her touch. They're similar to the equations we use in quantum mechanics, but far more advanced. Nyxus limped closer, her injured leg healing but still weak. They resemble ancient texts found in the earliest Dominion archives, writings we could never fully decipher. A soft hum filled the air as more symbols illuminated in response to their presence. The wall before them shifted, revealing a hidden chamber that made both women gasp. Inside, a vast holographic display filled the space, showing star systems, planets, and energy patterns that twisted through space itself. At the center was an image of their current location, a planet that seemed to phase between different states of reality. It's a nexus, Diana breathed, her engineer's mind racing to comprehend what she was seeing. This entire planet is an artificial construct, a junction point between different dimensions. Impossible, Nyxus whispered, but her scales had taken on the pale hue of awe. Such technology would require power beyond anything we've ever. Beyond anything we've achieved yet, Diana corrected, but not beyond what we could achieve together. Before Nyxus could respond, the holographic display shifted, focusing on a pulsing core deep within the planet. Numbers and symbols flashed urgently around it. That's not good, Diana muttered, studying the readouts. The core is destabilizing. This whole system is breaking down. Can you interpret these readings? Diana nodded slowly. Some of them, they're using quantum mathematics as a base language. This planet, this nexus, it was built by someone as a way to study and manipulate dimensional barriers. But something went wrong. The power core is hemorrhaging energy. A deep tremor ran through the ground, causing dust to fall from the ancient ceiling. In the distance, they could hear the crystalline creatures becoming more agitated. The creatures, Nyxus said suddenly. They're not predators, they're antibodies, this planet's defense system trying to eliminate what it perceives as threats. And as the core destabilizes, they're becoming more aggressive. Diana pointed to a sequence of symbols. According to this, when the core finally fails, it won't just destroy this planet. The dimensional tier will spread, consuming everything in its path. Both our territories lie in that path. Nyxus's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as she processed this information. How long? Hours, maybe less, but... Diana studied the controls, her expression intense. I think we can stop it. These systems, they're incredible. Your people's quantum drive technology, our theoretical work, it all came from here, didn't it? Fragments of knowledge from whoever built this place. The predecessors, Nyxis confirmed. We found ruins, pieces of their technology. We thought we had mastered it, but clearly. She gestured at their surroundings. We barely scratched the surface. Another tremor, stronger this time. Through the ruins' windows, they could see the sky turning darker, energy ribbons writhing like snakes in pain. We need to get to that core, Diana said. And we need to do it together. Your people's practical experience with quantum technology, combined with our theoretical understanding, it might be enough to stabilize the system. If we fail, then we get to watch reality tear itself apart. Diana managed a grim smile. But at least we'll have front-row seats. Nyxis studied her former enemy for a long moment. You understand that if we succeed, this technology, this knowledge, could either unite our people or give one side ultimate power over the other. Diana nodded. Yeah, I've thought about that. But right now, we have bigger problems than our war. The question is, can you trust a primitive human enough to save both our species? The ground shook again. Through their makeshift camp, both human and Dominion survivors watched the sky with growing fear. The crystalline creatures were getting closer, their impossible forms distorting more wildly as the planet's core continued to deteriorate. Nyxis straightened to her full height, scales shifting to a deep, determined blue. It seems I have no choice but to trust you, Diana Blackwood, though I'm beginning to suspect that primitive may have been an inaccurate assessment. High praise indeed, Diana grinned. Now let's go save reality, and after that maybe we can talk about a more permanent peace between our people. Together they began gathering their survivors, preparing for a desperate journey to the planet's core. The fate of two civilizations now rested on the cooperation of those who had been bitter enemies mere days ago. And as they worked, the ancient ruins hummed with power, as if the long-lost predecessors were watching, waiting to see if their inheritors could overcome their differences and prove themselves worthy of their legacy. The journey to the planet's core was a nightmare of twisted physics and reality-bending horrors. Diana and Nyxis led their mixed group of survivors through crystalline corridors that seemed to breathe, past chambers where gravity reversed without warning, and through spaces where time itself flowed like honey. The geometric creatures harried them constantly, their forms becoming more unstable as the core's deterioration accelerated. But with each encounter, humans and Dominion worked together more seamlessly, one group's weapons covering another's retreat, engineers from both species combining their knowledge to bypass ancient security systems. The core chamber should be through here, Diana said, studying a holographic map projected from a salvaged piece of the ruins' technology. Her uniform was torn, face streaked with sweat and crystalline dust. Nyxis nodded, her scales shifting between combat-ready silver and exhausted gray. The dimensional distortions are strongest here. We must hurry. They entered a vast spherical chamber that defied ordinary space. The core hung suspended in its center, a writhing mass of quantum energy that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Around it, reality fractured into countless reflections, each showing different versions of their universe. By the predecessors, Nyxis breathed, all four eyes wide. The power here could reshape everything, Diana finished, or destroy it all. She pointed to the failing containment systems around the core. Look at the harmonics pattern, it's just like your quantum drives, but on a cosmic scale. They worked quickly, human and Dominion engineers moving in concert around the ancient machinery. Diana's theoretical knowledge merged with Nyxis's practical experience, each insight building on the last. But time was running out. A massive tremor shook the chamber. Through the fractured spaces around them, they could see reality beginning to unravel. The containment field isn't stabilizing, one of the Dominion engineers called out. The power requirements are beyond our capabilities. Diana studied the equations flowing through the air, then looked at the crashed remains of the astral crown visible through one of the dimensional tiers. The ship's quantum drives, they were based on this technology, if we could link them. They're too damaged, Nyxus started to say, but Diana was already shaking her head. Not the drives themselves, the containment principles, your people's practical applications combined with our theoretical framework. She turned to Nyxus, eyes bright with revelation. We've been looking at it wrong. Both our species only had half the solution, but together. Understanding dawned in Nyxus's expression. Without a word, she linked her neural interface with the core systems, while Diana's hands flew across the control surfaces. Human intuition and Dominion precision worked in harmony, rewriting the fundamental equations that govern the containment field. The core pulsed, energy arcing wildly as reality buckled around them. For a moment it seemed they had failed. But then, the quantum field stabilized. The dimensional fractures began to heal. The core's light steadied into a brilliant, controlled glow. "It's working," Diana laughed in disbelief. "We actually did it." Nyxus studied the readouts, her scales shimmering with barely contained awe. "More than that, we've improved it. The efficiency readings are beyond anything in our records." Around them, the chamber hummed with renewed purpose. The geometric creatures had stopped their attacks, their forms stabilizing into crystalline sentinels that stood guard around the chamber. "They recognize us now," Nyxus realized. "The planet's defenses, they've accepted us as worthy inheritors." Diana looked around at their gathered survivors, humans and Dominion working together, checking readings, securing systems, all traces of their former enmity forgotten in the face of what they'd accomplished. "Maybe that was the point," she said softly. "Maybe the predecessors left all this here as a test, to see if we could overcome our differences and work together." The end.